The night was cold and wet, and the wind howled through the narrow streets of the city like it was warning everyone to stay inside. Rain fell hard, hitting the pavement in heavy drops that turned sidewalks into slippery paths. The lights from street lamps flickered now and then, casting long shadows across the quiet neighborhood. Most people were safely tucked away in their homes, warm under blankets, watching TV or sleeping. But not everyone had a home to go to. Maria was sitting on the edge of the sidewalk outside a gas station, her back leaning against the cool brick wall behind her. She was very pregnant, her belly round and large under the thin hoodie she wore. Her face was pale, and beads of sweat mixed with raindrops on her forehead. She had no coat, no umbrella, just the soaked clothes on her back. Her hands were wrapped tightly around her stomach, as if trying to hold on to the life growing inside her. She had been walking for hours, trying to find shelter, but every place she tried either turned her away or told her to come back later. No one wanted to help a tired homeless woman who didn't speak perfect English and didn't have money. Maria was scared, not just because she was alone, but because something felt wrong. Her body was hurting in ways she couldn't explain. Every few minutes, pain shot through her stomach like a punch, sharp and sudden. She knew what it meant. The baby was coming. She looked up at the sky, tears mixing with the rain on her cheeks. "Please," she whispered, eyes closed. "Please help me." Around her, people passed by without stopping. A couple hurried past under an umbrella, laughing and talking about dinner plans. A man walked his dog nearby, glancing at her once, before looking away. A group of teenagers stood near the entrance of the gas station, smoking and chatting, occasionally glancing at her like she was part of the scenery. One girl pulled out her phone and pointed it at Maria. "Hey, this could get so many likes," she said, snapping a video. Another boy laughed and added, "She's probably faking it anyway." But Maria wasn't faking anything. Her breathing became heavier. Each breath came slower than the last, and her legs trembled. Then, without warning, she let out a cry of pain and slid down the wall, landing hard on the wet concrete. That cry echoed into the night, bouncing off buildings and disappearing into the sound of falling rain. Still, no one moved to help. A man in a black hoodie stepped out of the gas station with a soda in hand. He looked at Maria, frowned, then walked quickly to his car and drove off. A worker inside the station glanced out the window, saw her on the ground, and shrugged before turning back to restocking shelves. Maria tried to call out again, but her voice cracked with exhaustion. Her fingers dug into the ground as another wave of pain hit her. Her vision blurred. She felt dizzy. The world around her started to spin. She reached into her pocket with shaking hands and pulled out an old phone. It had only one bar of signal. With trembling fingers, she dialed 911. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Then a robotic voice said, "All lines are busy. Please hold." Maria pressed the phone to her ear, tears streaming down her face. She waited and waited. Inside the emergency center, phones were ringing nonstop. Ambulances were already out dealing with car crashes, heart attacks, and other emergencies. The system was overwhelmed. Maria's call went into a queue, forgotten among dozens of others. Back outside, the rain kept falling. Maria was still on the ground, curled up, holding her belly. Her lips moved silently, whispering prayers in Spanish. Her voice was weak, almost lost in the wind. A car finally pulled up. Maria lifted her head slightly, hope sparking in her eyes. But the driver rolled down the window just enough to shout, "Get up, lady! You're blocking the road!" Then he sped off, tires splashing water all over her. Her hope faded. She closed her eyes again. Not far away, the deep growl of a motorcycle engine rumbled through the night. The sound was low and powerful, like thunder rolling in from a distance. Soon, the bright headlights of a large chopper cut through the darkness, pulling into the gas station slowly. The rider climbed off the bike, pulling off his helmet. He was a big man with tattoos crawling up both arms and a beard that showed years of rough living. His leather jacket was covered in patches and symbols that warned most people to keep their distance. He was known in the neighborhood not for kindness, but for being part of a feared biker gang, the Hells Angels. He stretched his legs, took a deep breath of the wet air, and looked around. That's when he saw her. Maria was barely moving now. Her breathing was shallow. The man paused. At first he thought maybe she was drunk or high, but something didn't feel right. He took a few steps closer. She moaned softly, her hand reaching toward him like a silent plea. He hesitated. He wasn't used to helping strangers, especially not helpless ones. He'd seen too much, lived too roughly to care easily, but something about her, maybe the fear in her eyes, maybe the way she clutched her stomach, made him stop and look again. He crouched beside her. "Hey," he said, voice gruff but not unkind. "You okay?" Maria opened her eyes. Her lips moved, but no words came out. He touched her shoulder gently. "Hey, talk to me." She managed a whisper. "Baby, coming." That one word, baby, hit him like a punch to the gut. His jaw tightened. For a moment memories flashed through his mind, memories of another woman, another child lost long ago. He blinked them away. He looked around. No one else was helping. Just like always. He stood up, took off his jacket, and carefully wrapped it around her shoulders. "I'm getting you help," he said. And for the first time that night, Maria felt a spark of real hope. The biker's name was Jack, but everyone called him Reaper. That night, he didn't feel like Reaper. He felt like a man standing at the edge of something big, something that could change everything. Maria shivered under his jacket. It was big on her, hanging off one shoulder, soaked from the rain. Her face was pale, and every few seconds she winced in pain. Reaper looked into her eyes and saw fear, not just of the pain, but of being alone, of being ignored, of not making it. He had seen that look before. A long time ago, someone else had looked at him the same way. His wife, Lila. She had been carrying their baby when a drunk driver hit them both. He remembered the hospital, the silence after the doctor came out, the way the world seemed to stop, turning. That moment changed him forever. Now here was Maria, in the same kind of trouble, and no one was helping her. Not the people walking by, not the workers inside the gas station, not even the emergency line. Just like back then. Reaper took a deep breath. "We're going," he said firmly. Maria tried to nod, but even that seemed hard. Reaper gently helped her up. She leaned against him, barely able to stand on her own. Every step hurt, but she kept moving. Nearby, 2 other bikers pulled into the gas station. They were part of the same club as Reaper, rough men with loud laughs and even louder bikes. One of them, a guy named Gator, saw what was happening and raised an eyebrow. "Bro, what are you doing?" Gator asked. Reaper didn't stop. "Taking her to the hospital." Gator laughed. "On your bike?" Reaper shot him a sharp look. "You got a better idea?" Gator shook his head. "Man, you're gonna get pulled over, or worse, crash." Reaper didn't answer. He walked Maria to his chopper, a big black motorcycle with chrome parts that gleamed even in the dark. It growled like a beast when he started it up. Maria stared at it like it was something from another planet. "You sure?" she whispered. Reaper nodded. "You don't have time for a cab, or for waiting. You need help now." She looked scared, but also grateful. Slowly, she climbed onto the back seat, holding onto the handles behind her. Reaper handed her his helmet. "Put this on," he said, "and hold on tight." Maria did as she was told. Reaper swung his leg over the bike, sat down, and revved the engine. The sound echoed through the street. Gator and the other biker watched them go, shaking their heads. "That dude's crazy," Gator muttered. But Reaper wasn't thinking about laws or rules or what people would say. All he could think about was getting Maria to the hospital before it was too late. He turned onto the main road, the rain still falling hard. Traffic was light, but not empty. Cars moved slowly through the wet streets, headlights cutting through the dark. Reaper twisted the throttle and picked up speed. Behind them, Maria held on tightly, her arms wrapped around his waist. Every bump made her wince. Every second felt longer than the last. Reaper drove fast, but not recklessly. He weaved between cars, used side roads when he could, and never let his focus slip. He knew if he messed up, both of them could be hurt. But he also knew if he didn't move fast, Maria and her baby might not make it. A red light blinked ahead. Reaper saw it but didn't slow down. He couldn't afford to. Suddenly, lights flashed behind him. Cops. One of the patrol cars had spotted him speeding and was chasing him down. Sirens screamed through the night. Reaper cursed under his breath. If they pulled him over now, Maria could lose everything. Just then, his radio crackled. "This is Officer Ramirez," a voice said. "I've been updated on the call from earlier. Are you transporting a woman in labor?" Reaper blinked. He pressed the button. "Yeah, we're heading to St. Mary's." There was a pause. "Understood. Continue to the hospital. I'll clear." The route ahead. Reaper let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. Back at the station, Officer Ramirez had been going through calls when he heard the update about Maria. He'd been a cop for almost 15 years and had seen too many stories where help came too late. He wasn't going to let that happen tonight. As Reaper sped toward the hospital, Ramirez called ahead. "This is urgent. We've got a woman in labor being transported on a motorcycle. Clear the ER and prep staff." Inside the hospital, nurses and doctors rushed into position. One nurse, a young woman named Jenna, stood near the entrance, heart pounding. "Is this real?" she asked another nurse. "Looks like it," the other replied. "Hope this biker knows what he's doing." Outside, Reaper saw the hospital sign, glowing through the rain. He pushed harder on the gas. Maria groaned loudly behind him, clutching his jacket tighter. Another wave of pain hit her like a wave crashing on the shore. "Almost there," Reaper said. "Just hold on." Then suddenly, the worst happened. Maria's water broke. Right there, on the back of the bike. She gasped, eyes wide. "It's happening," she cried. Reaper's stomach dropped. He clenched his jaw and drove faster. Within minutes, they reached the hospital. Reaper skidded to a stop outside the ER doors. Nurses and doctors ran out with a wheelchair. Reaper helped Maria off the bike. Her legs gave out beneath her, but hands caught her before she fell. She was lifted into the chair and wheeled inside. Reaper stood there for a moment, rain soaking his clothes, heart pounding. Then he followed them inside. Jenna stopped him before he could go further. "Sir, you can't come in." He looked at her, eyes tired but full of emotion. "I brought her here," he said quietly. "I just want to know she's okay." Jenna studied him for a moment. Then she nodded. "Wait here. I'll tell you soon." She disappeared through the double doors. Reaper sat down on a bench, staring at the floor. His hands were still shaking. Outside, the storm began to ease. The rain slowed. The wind softened. Inside, life was beginning. Inside the hospital room, Maria lay on the bed, her face pale and wet with sweat. The pain was sharp and constant now, like fire running through her body. She gripped the rail of the bed tightly, her knuckles white. "Breathe, Maria," said Dr. Patel, the doctor helping her. "You're doing great." Maria tried to breathe, but each breath felt short and shaky. Her heart pounded like a drum. She looked around the room, searching for something familiar, something safe. She didn't see Reaper, but she remembered his voice just before they wheeled her in. "I brought you here. Just hold on." Now, alone under bright lights, fear crept back into her chest. A nurse held her hand gently. "We're right here with you," she said. "Just keep pushing when we tell you." Maria nodded weakly. Outside the delivery room, Reaper sat in the waiting area, still wearing his wet jacket. He hadn't moved since the nurses told him to stay put. His boots left dark marks on the clean floor where rainwater dripped off them. He stared at the door, hands resting on his knees. Every sound from inside made his stomach twist. Her cries, the beeping machines, the voices of the doctors giving orders. He had faced fights, guns, and even prison time without flinching. But this This scared him more than anything ever had. The minutes dragged by. Then suddenly a loud cry cut through the silence. A baby's cry. Reaper's head snapped up. The door opened a crack and Nurse Jenna peeked out. She smiled softly. "It's a girl," she said. Reaper let out a long breath he didn't know he was holding. He closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them again. Is Maria okay?" Jenna nodded. "She's tired, but she's strong. Both of them are." Reaper stood slowly as if unsure what to do next. "Can I see them?" Jenna hesitated, then stepped aside. For a minute. He walked inside carefully like he was stepping into a world he didn't belong in. The smell of soap and medicine filled the air. In the center of the room, Maria sat up slightly, looking exhausted but smiling. In her arms, wrapped in a soft blue blanket, was a tiny baby. Maria looked up and saw Reaper standing there. Her smile widened. "She's beautiful," Reaper whispered. Maria nodded. "Her name is Hope," she said softly. Reaper swallowed hard. That one word, hope, hit him deep. It wasn't just a name. It was something he thought he'd lost a long time ago. He took a few steps closer. "Can I?" He trailed off, not sure if he should ask. Maria held the baby out slightly. "Yes." Very gently, Reaper reached out and took the tiny bundle in his arms. He held her like she was made of glass, his big hands careful and soft. Hope blinked up at him with wide, curious eyes. Something inside him cracked open. He felt tears prick his eyes, but he blinked them away. No one had ever trusted him like this. No one had ever handed him something so small, so fragile, so full of life. "You're safe," he whispered to the baby. "You're gonna be okay." Maria watched. Him, her heart swelling. This man. The one everyone feared. The one who wore leather and rode a roaring bike. He had risked everything to save them. "I want you to be her godfather," she said quietly. Reaper looked up, surprised. "Me?" She nodded. "You were the only one who cared. You gave us a chance." Reaper didn't answer right away. He looked down at Hope again, then back at Maria. "I don't know how to be that kind of person," he admitted. "You already are," Maria said with a small smile. Outside, the storm had passed. The sky was clearing, stars beginning to peek through the clouds. Inside, a new kind of light had begun. Later that night, after Maria and Hope were taken to a quiet room to rest, Reaper stood outside the hospital, staring at his bike. It looked different now. Not just a machine, not just a symbol of freedom or rebellion. It was something else too, something that had saved lives tonight. A reporter approached him cautiously. "Sir, can I ask you a few questions?" Reaper frowned. "About what?" The reporter smiled. "About what happened tonight. People are talking about it online. They want to know why you helped her." Reaper crossed his arms. "Because no one else did." The reporter wrote something down. "Do you have a message for people watching this story?" Reaper looked toward the window where Maria and Hope were sleeping. "Yeah," he said. "Sometimes the person who looks the toughest might just be the one who cares the most." Back inside, Maria woke briefly and looked at her daughter. Hope slept peacefully, tucked safely in her arms. She kissed the top of the baby's head. "Thank you," she whispered. And somewhere down the hall, Reaper leaned against the wall, still thinking about the night's events. He had always believed he was broken beyond fixing. But maybe, just maybe, he wasn't done yet. Maybe he still had a place in the world. Maybe he still had hope. The next morning, the city woke up to a strange but powerful story spreading fast online. People were talking about a biker, tall, tattooed, leather-clad, who had carried a pregnant woman through the rain on his motorcycle and saved her life. Videos started showing up on social media. Some showed Reaper helping Maria onto his bike. Others showed him walking into the hospital behind her, soaked and silent. A few clips even caught him sitting in the waiting room, looking more nervous than angry for once. At first, people thought it was a joke or some kind of movie scene. But then the hospital confirmed it. Yes, a woman had gone into labor alone on the street and no one helped, until the biker showed up. Maria's face appeared in news photos, smiling weakly in her hospital, bed with baby Hope wrapped in her arms. Reporters called it a miracle. Doctors said if she'd waited any longer, both mother and child could have been in serious danger. Reaper, though, wasn't interested in being famous. He didn't want interviews or headlines. He just wanted to know they were okay. But the world wouldn't let him stay quiet. Outside the hospital, a small crowd began to gather. People brought flowers, balloons, and handmade signs thanking him. One read, "Thank you, biker hero." Another said, "You have a heart under that leather." Local radio host talked about him on air. "This man," he said, "is a reminder that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they ride loud bikes and look like they belong on the edge of trouble." Inside the hospital, Maria sat up in bed, watching everything unfold on a phone someone had lent her. She saw the videos, the messages, the comments from strangers, saying they were inspired. She smiled, tears in her eyes. "They're making you a hero," said Nurse Jenna, who had become a friend during those long hours. Maria shook her head. He already was one. Later that day, Reaper came back to visit. He walked into the room slowly, like he wasn't sure he belonged there. He had changed out of his wet clothes into clean jeans and a black shirt, but he still looked like a man used to keeping his distance. Maria looked at him and smiled. "You're famous." Reaper rolled his eyes. "I hate that word." She laughed softly. "They're saying nice things about you." He shrugged. "People say a lot of things." Maria reached over and gently placed Hope in his arms again. Reaper held her carefully, the same way he had the night before. "I never thought I'd hold a baby again," he whispered. Maria watched him closely. "Why not?" Reaper looked down at the sleeping baby, then up at Maria. "Because I lost mine," he said quietly. Maria's eyes softened. "What happened?" Reaper took a deep breath. "My wife was carrying our baby. We were riding home one night. A car ran a red light, hit us head on." His voice cracked slightly, but he kept going. "I survived. She didn't. The baby didn't either." Maria's heart broke for him. "I'm so sorry." Reaper nodded. "That was a long time ago, but when I saw you last night, I couldn't walk away. It felt like fate." Maria reached out and touched his arm. "Then maybe fate gave you another chance." Reaper looked at her, then at Hope. For the first time in years, something inside him felt lighter. Over the next few days, more people reached out. Social workers offered Maria help finding housing and support. A local charity heard her story and donated baby supplies, cribs, diapers, bottles, clothes. Strangers sent money through online fundraisers. One person even offered her a job at their daycare center. Reaper stayed nearby. He didn't talk much, but he made sure Maria had what she needed. When reporters asked him questions, he mostly answered with short words. But when they asked why he did it, he gave the same answer every time. No one else was going to. Back at the Hells Angels clubhouse, his friends teased him a little. "Since when do we rescue damsels in distress?" Gator joked. Reaper smirked. "Since we started doing the right thing." Some of the others raised their eyebrows, surprised. But after hearing the full story, even the toughest bikers gave him nods of respect. One older member, a man named Cutter, clapped him on the back. "Sometimes doing the hard thing is the bravest thing." Word spread beyond the neighborhood. Local leaders talked about starting a new outreach program for mothers in need. A nurse started training volunteers to help women like Maria find medical care when they had nowhere else to go. And all of it started with one man seeing someone in trouble and choosing to help. A week later, Maria was finally allowed to take Hope home. Reaper followed them on his bike, making sure they got there safely. When they arrived, Maria turned to him. "This is your home too," she said. Reaper blinked. "You sure?" She nodded. "Hope needs you." He looked at the tiny girl in her arms, then at the small apartment filled with donated furniture and baby items. It wasn't much, but it was real. It was Hope. "I'll be here," he said simply. Maria smiled. I know. As the sun set behind the buildings, casting golden light across the city, Reaper stood outside for a moment, watching the sky change colors. He thought about the past, the pain, the loss, the years of silence, and now, the future. Future where he wasn't just a biker, not just an outlaw, not just a man hiding from grief. Now he was a protector, a father figure, a hero, not because anyone said so, but because he chose to be. The apartment was no longer empty. It had soft blankets, baby toys scattered across the floor, and pictures taped to the walls. Hope's first smile, her first bath, her first time sitting up. The little girl was growing fast, full of energy and curiosity. She loved to reach out and touch everything, especially Reaper's beard. He still wore his leather jacket most days, but now it often had baby wipes tucked into the pockets. He learned how to change diapers, warm bottles, and rock a crying baby back to sleep. People who once crossed the street when they saw him coming now smiled and waved. Look at you, Maria would tease him, watching as he held Hope like she was the most precious thing in the world. Big bad biker turned baby whisperer. Reaper would just grunt and say, "She likes me better than you anyway." They both knew he was kidding, but only just a little. Maria found work at the daycare center that had reached out after the news story. She loved being around children, and the job gave her a steady income and a sense of purpose. For the first time in years, she felt safe, not just from the cold or hunger, but from loneliness. Hope gave her strength. And Reaper? He gave her hope. First, Reaper didn't know what to do with all the attention he was getting. Local reporters wanted to interview him. A TV station asked if they could make a short documentary about what happened that night. Even a writer reached out asking if he'd ever tell his full story. But Reaper wasn't interested in fame. He didn't want money or praise. What he wanted was harder to explain. He wanted to do more. So he started showing up at community centers, not to speak but to listen. He met mothers who were struggling, kids who had no one to look up to, families living in fear. He didn't try to fix everything. He couldn't. But he offered something simple: protection. If someone tried to hurt these people, they'd have to go through him first. He became known in the neighborhood as someone who stood up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. The same man who used to be feared now walked down the street with nods of respect and quiet thanks. One day, a teenage girl came up to him outside the grocery store. She looked nervous, holding a small bag close to her chest. I just wanted to say thank you, she said. For what? Reaper asked, puzzled. For helping Maria, she replied. I saw the video online. My mom watches it sometimes when she's having a bad day. Reaper raised an eyebrow. It helps? The girl nodded. She says it reminds her that even in the darkest times, someone might still care. Reaper looked away for a moment, touched by her words. Tell her she's right, he said quietly. And if anyone ever gives her trouble, they'll answer to me. The girl smiled and walked off, lighter than when she arrived. Back home, Maria sat on the couch with Hope in her lap. Reaper was nearby, fixing a broken chair that had come loose at the leg. You know, Maria said, watching him work, you don't have to stay here forever. Reaper didn't look up. I know, but you are. He paused, then met her eyes. Yeah, I am. Maria smiled softly. You've changed. So have you, he replied. She nodded. We both needed a second chance. Reaper looked at Hope, who was trying to chew on her toes. He chuckled. Guess we got one. Outside, the sun dipped low in the sky, painting the streets in orange and pink. Birds chirped, and the sound of children playing floated through the open window. Life was moving forward, slow but sure. Later that week, Maria took Hope to the park. Reaper followed behind on foot, keeping a respectful distance but always watching. He leaned against a tree while Maria sat on a bench, chatting with other moms. Hope crawled across the grass, giggling every time she touched a leaf or a flower. She reached up toward a butterfly fluttering near her and squealed with delight. Maria laughed, wiping sweat from her brow. "She's going to be fearless," she said, to the others. One of the moms glanced at Reaper. "Is he?" Maria nodded. "Her godfather," the woman smiled. "Lucky girl." Reaper heard them but didn't respond. He just watched Hope, his heart full in a way he hadn't thought possible. That night, Maria tucked Hope into her crib. She kissed her daughter's forehead and whispered, "You're safe, you're loved." Then she walked into the living room where Reaper was flipping through channels on the TV. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For staying. For helping. For believing in us when no one else did." Reaper looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, "You don't have to thank me, I'm just glad I was there." Maria sat beside him. "Me too." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the sounds of the city outside, the distant hum of cars, the laughter of neighbors, the wind rustling the trees. Inside, peace. Outside, life. And somewhere between them, a miracle had taken root. Because sometimes, all it takes is one person seeing someone in need and choosing to care, even if that person wears leather, even if that person rides a loud bike, even if that person was once lost himself. Sometimes, the strongest kind of love comes from the most unexpected places, and that night under the stars 2 lives were saved. Not just Maria's, not just Hope's, but Reaper's too.